My uncle asked me to lie about why he missed my father's funeral. Then I discovered he was inside Dad's business, stealing evidence of a $599,100 fraud scheme he'd been hiding for years. 10 minutes before the pallbearers carried my father into the church, my Uncle Victor texted me and asked me to lie about why he was not there. "Tell everyone my blood pressure put me in the emergency room," Victor wrote. "Please, Olivia, your father would want you to protect the family." At almost the same moment, an alert appeared on my phone from the security system at Dad's machine shop. Victor's code had opened Dad's private office 24 miles away. My uncle was not in a hospital. He was inside my dead father's office while every employee, relative, and family friend was gathered for the funeral. I did not know what Victor was taking. I also did not know why Dad had changed his will 48 hours before he died and left me a sealed envelope labeled, "If Victor misses the funeral, do not call him first." I told the church coordinator that Victor had a personal emergency. That was the only lie I agreed to tell. Then I carried the envelope through my father's funeral, wondering whether the man who had shared Dad's business for 31 years was stealing from him before the grave had even been closed. I was 33 and worked as a forensic accountant for an insurance company. Dad, Daniel Mercer, was 61 when a cerebral aneurysm killed him without warning. On Friday morning, he was arguing with me about whether grocery store tomatoes had any flavor. On Friday evening, he collapsed beside his workbench. He died early Saturday. Victor was Dad's younger brother by 3 years. Together, they owned Mercer Precision, a 46-employee machine shop that made specialized parts for agricultural equipment. Dad owned 60%, Victor owned 40%. Dad managed production and finance. Victor handled sales, vendors, and what he called relationships. For most of my life, they seemed inseparable. They coached my soccer team, repaired each other's roofs, and spent every Christmas morning competing to give Grandma the most impractical gift. When my mother left when I was 9, Victor came over every Wednesday with takeout so Dad would not have to cook after his late shift. That history was why his absence hurt before it frightened me. The funeral was scheduled for Thursday. Victor helped choose the hymns and promised to deliver the eulogy. On Wednesday night, he called me and said he had found an old photograph of Dad standing beside their first lathe. His voice sounded normal. Then, on Thursday morning, he vanished. At 8:47 a.m., Victor texted that he felt dizzy and was going to urgent care. At 9:26, he said an ambulance was transferring him to the hospital. At 9:50, he asked me to say his blood pressure had become dangerous. The funeral began at 10. The shop alarm registered Victor's code at 9:48. I opened the security application from the church hallway. The main cameras appeared offline. That was unusual, but not conclusive because the system was old. I could still see door events. Victor had entered through the loading bay, disabled the office motion sensor, and opened the records room. I wanted to drive there immediately. Instead, I heard the organ begin. 46 employees were waiting to say goodbye to the man who had signed their paychecks and attended their children's graduations. I decided Victor would not steal Dad's funeral from them too. I silenced my phone and walked into the sanctuary. Victor's empty seat remained in the front row. Grandma kept looking toward it. When the pastor reached the place reserved for Victor's eulogy, I stood and read a short story about Dad teaching me to use a micrometer. I did not tell anyone where Victor was. After the burial, I returned to the shop with our operations manager, Elena Ruiz. Elena had worked for Dad for 18 years and knew every lock in the building. Victor's truck was gone. Dad's office door stood open. At first, nothing looked disturbed. His coffee mug remained beside the keyboard. The yellow legal pad from his final week lay under a paperweight. Then Elena noticed dust-free rectangles on the records room shelf. 3 archive boxes were missing. So was a gray external hard drive Dad kept in his fireproof cabinet. The cabinet had not been forced. Victor knew the combination. We checked the camera recorder. Its network cable had been unplugged at 9:52. Whoever did it understood exactly where the recorder was stored. The local footage from 9:48 to 10:31 had been deleted. At 12:40, Victor called me from his car. "I am sorry I scared everyone," Victor said. "The doctors got my pressure down. I am going home to sleep." I asked which hospital treated him. He paused, then named St. Anne's. I told him the shop alarm had recorded his entry. Victor did not deny it. His voice became soft. "Your father left some sensitive files," Victor said. "They could destroy the company if outsiders misunderstood them. I went to protect the employees." I asked what he removed. "Old vendor disputes," Victor replied. "Nothing related to the estate. Please do not tell your grandmother. She cannot survive thinking her sons were fighting." Then he said something that shifted my fear into certainty. "And do not open any files Daniel left for you until we talk. He was not thinking clearly this week." Dad had not told Victor about the sealed envelope. At least, I had not told him. If Victor knew Dad left files for me, he had either seen the will or searched the office before the funeral. I went home, locked the doors, and opened the envelope with Elena and my attorney Marcus Bell on a video call. Inside were 3 items: a handwritten letter, a flash drive, and a copy of Dad's new will. The letter began with an apology. "Olivia," Dad had written, "if you are reading this under the circumstances I described, then I waited too long to tell you what I found. Victor has been moving company money through vendors connected to Noah. I do not yet know the full amount. Do not accuse him without an audit. Preserve the cloud records first." Noah was Victor's 30-year-old son, my cousin. He ran a logistics company called Northline Freight. Mercer Precision had begun using Northline 18 months earlier, after Victor said our previous carrier raised prices. Dad's flash drive contained spreadsheets showing payments to Northline and 3 suppliers I did not recognize. He had highlighted duplicate invoice numbers, weekend wire transfers, and purchase orders approved through my old company login. That last detail made my hands shake. I had worked part-time at Mercer Precision during graduate school. My login should have been disabled 8 years earlier. Someone had reactivated it and used my name to approve $186,300 in transactions. Dad's letter continued. "I know those approvals were not yours. The IP logs point to Victor's office. I changed my will to require an independent forensic audit before any transfer or sale of my shares. Until the audit is complete, Olivia will vote the shares as trustee." The will did not hand me the company outright. It placed Dad's 60% interest in a temporary trust. I would control voting rights, but could not sell or distribute anything until an independent accountant completed the audit. Dad had built a break into the inheritance. Victor had spent the funeral trying to remove whatever he thought would trigger it. Marcus told me not to confront him again. We photographed the office, preserved alarm logs, and asked the security provider to retain cloud backups. Elena changed administrator passwords and disabled every access code except hers. The next morning, I notified Victor in writing that the trust controlled Dad's shares and that no unusual transaction could occur without dual authorization. Victor arrived at the shop 20 minutes later. He walked into the conference room carrying Dad's missing archive boxes and said the entire situation had been a misunderstanding. The external hard drive was not with him. "Daniel was collecting incomplete information," Victor said. "If customers hear the word audit right after his death, they will panic. We need to present a united family." I asked why he deleted funeral hour camera footage. "I did not delete anything," Victor replied. "The recorder failed." Elena asked why he lied about being in the hospital. "Because I knew how it would look," Victor said, "and this proves I was right." That answer became his pattern. Every fact did not prove wrongdoing. It supposedly proved that honest actions could be misunderstood. The audit began on Monday. I hired a firm from another city so no local relationship could influence it. We preserved accounting data, bank statements, email, vendor files, gate logs, and purchasing records. Victor objected to the cost, then refused to provide his phone. 2 days later, our largest customer received an anonymous email claiming Mercer Precision could not meet its contracts because Dad's estate had frozen the company. The customer paused a $680,000 order and requested financial assurances. Victor cited the pause as proof that my audit was destroying the business. The email came through an encrypted service, but the attached production schedule contained a distinctive typo from a draft stored only in Victor's sales folder. When confronted, Victor said anyone could have copied it. Elena restored the order by giving the customer a plant tour, current cash statements, and a written continuity plan. The order resumed, but the episode cost 9 days and almost forced a temporary reduction in shifts. That setback taught me why Dad had warned against a public accusation before preserving records. Victor did not need to win an argument. He only needed employees and customers to panic long enough for the rushed asset sale to look like rescue. He began holding private meetings with supervisors. He told them I planned to liquidate the shop and return to my comfortable insurance job. 3 supervisors asked Elena whether they should update their resumes. Instead of issuing a broad denial, Elena and I held small meetings where we showed the trust terms, cash position, and audit schedule. We promised no sale without an independent valuation and employee impact review. Victor called those meetings propaganda. Yet attendance stabilized, and not one supervisor left. For the first 2 weeks, the missing boxes seemed less important than Dad expected. They contained paper invoices, but the accounting server retained digital copies. Northline had charged Mercer Precision rates 22 to 38% above comparable carriers. Noah's company often subcontracted the actual work to our previous carrier and kept the difference. Victor defended those margins as coordination fees. Then the auditors examined the 3 unknown suppliers. All were limited liability companies registered to a commercial mailbox. Payments totaled $412,800 over 3 years. The companies had supplied cutting tools, lubricants, and scrap removal services, but employees could not remember receiving many of the items. One company, Red Cedar Industrial, shared a phone number with a lake cabin rental owned by Victor's wife. Another, Summit Materials, had been formed by Noah's college roommate. The third company was more carefully hidden. Its organizer was an attorney, and its bank records required a subpoena. Victor became increasingly urgent about selling the company before the audit finished. He claimed a national manufacturer called Bridgemark Industries had offered $7.2 million for Mercer Precision. According to Victor, the offer would preserve every job and give the family immediate security. He scheduled a presentation for the board and told Grandma that Dad had been planning to accept. Dad's calendar contained no meeting with Bridgemark. Marcus contacted Bridgemark's legal department. The company had discussed buying equipment, not the business. The actual proposal was $2.1 million for 12 high-value machines and the customer list. Mercer Precision would be left with debt, an empty production floor, and no way to employ 46 people. The buyer listed in Victor's draft agreement was not even Bridgemark. It was BRI Holdings, a company created 23 days earlier. Noah owned 35% through another entity. Victor had planned to sell the best assets cheaply to a company connected to his son, use Dad's death to force speed, and leave the trust holding a hollow business. The funeral had offered him a rare window. Every manager was at the church. The shop was closed. Victor removed the archive boxes, deleted local video, and took Dad's external drive because he believed it contained the only complete vendor analysis. But Dad had anticipated that, too. The gray drive in the cabinet was labeled Archive. The real evidence synchronized nightly to a cloud account controlled by Dad and his attorney. The physical drive was a decoy containing the same obvious spreadsheets Dad had placed on my flash drive. The missing drive told us Victor had taken the bait. Victor returned the drive through his attorney after we demanded it. It had been wiped and physically damaged with a drilled hole through the casing. His lawyer described the damage as accidental. A forensic technician could not recover the files, but photographed metal shavings inside the carrying pouch. More importantly, Victor had signed a chain of custody declaration claiming the drive remained untouched in his desk from Thursday until Monday. The cloud device log disproved that declaration. It showed the drive mounted at Victor's house during the funeral, then mounted again the following evening. The drill damage did not merely suggest panic. It supported a separate allegation that Victor destroyed evidence after receiving notice of Dad's death and before returning company property. Cloud security logs showed the drive connected to Victor's home computer at 11:58 on the morning of the funeral. A deletion tool had been run 6 minutes later. The software could erase a drive, but it could not erase the provider's device log. That still was not the final secret. The auditors found an audio file Dad recorded 2 days before his death. Dad did not secretly record a conversation. He made a voice memorandum after meeting Victor, something he often did for business decisions. In it, Dad said Victor had admitted taking temporary margins through Northline because Noah's company was failing. Dad demanded full repayment and planned to present the matter to the board on Monday. Victor asked for 1 weekend to propose a solution. Dad died Friday night. There was no evidence Victor caused Dad's aneurysm, and I never suggested that he did. But he used the sudden death as the weekend he had requested. Instead of disclosing the money, he prepared the asset sale and went to the office during the funeral to destroy evidence. When Grandma learned the truth, she did not collapse as Victor predicted. She asked for every document in chronological order. Then she asked a painful, practical question. "Was Daniel afraid of his brother when he died?" Grandma asked. I told her the letter sounded disappointed, not afraid. Dad had still hoped Victor would confess and repair the damage. Grandma asked me not to hide anything else in the name of protecting her. She also gave me a small black notebook Dad had left at her house the week before he died. Victor had searched the shop, but apparently did not know Dad sometimes balanced difficult decisions at Grandma's kitchen table. The notebook listed 12 invoice numbers beside 3 initials, V, N, and L. The V entries matched Victor's approvals. N matched payments routed to Northline. We did not understand L until Elena recognized the initials of Leonard Price, the broker who introduced the BRI asset deal. Leonard had been promised a $140,000 success fee, payable by one of the shell suppliers after closing. Dad's notebook linked the inflated vendor money to the proposed sale before the auditors obtained the shell company bank records. Grandma remembered Dad saying, "If Victor tells the truth on Monday, maybe the company can survive the shame." That sentence explained why Dad had not fired his brother immediately. He had been preparing accountability, but he still left a door open for confession. Victor used that opening to prepare a theft disguised as a rescue. We scheduled a special board meeting 3 weeks after the funeral. Victor arrived with his attorney, Noah, and the proposed asset sale documents. He acted as if the meeting concerned which offer to accept. I began by asking him to explain why he missed Dad's funeral. "I was treated for a hypertensive crisis," Victor said in front of the board. "I have already apologized for the pain it caused." Marcus placed a written response from St. Anne's on the screen. The hospital had no record of Victor being treated that day. We then displayed the shop entry log, cloud device log, and a still image recovered from the loading bay camera. The camera's local recorder had been unplugged, but it also sent low-resolution motion thumbnails to the alarm provider. One showed Victor carrying the gray drive out at 10:27, while I was delivering his brother's eulogy. Victor's attorney requested a break. Victor refused. He said he had taken the files to protect the company from Dad's paranoia. That was when I played Dad's voice memorandum. After Dad's voice described Victor's admission, I showed the vendor payment map. Northline and the shell suppliers had received $599,100 in questionable payments. The proposed equipment sale would move the company's productive assets to an entity partly owned by Noah. Elena then presented a staff impact analysis. If the sale proceeded, 39 of 46 employees would lose their jobs within 60 days. Victor's promise to protect them had never appeared in the contract. Noah looked at his father and asked whether he knew BRI planned layoffs. Victor said layoffs were not final. Noah replied that Victor had told him the machines would come with trained employees and that the old company would be dissolved. Their argument confirmed the structure in front of the board. As trustee of Dad's 60% interest, I voted to reject the sale, remove Victor as president pending litigation, and appoint Elena interim chief executive. The independent board members supported both motions. Victor's 40% could not stop them. Victor stood, pointed at me, and said Dad would hate what I was doing to his brother. Dad gave me written instructions for exactly this situation. I replied, "You missed his funeral to erase them." The civil case lasted 11 months. Victor initially claimed Dad had authorized every markup. Email and bank records disproved that. Red Cedar Industrial had paid Victor's mortgage, boat insurance, and cabin expenses. Summit Materials had routed money to Noah, who said he believed the payments were consulting fees. The third shell company held the biggest surprise. It had funded the down payment for BRI Holdings, meaning Mercer Precision's own stolen money was being used to purchase Mercer Precision's assets. Victor's strongest counterattack was to accuse me of fabricating Dad's flash drive after his death. He filed a petition asking the court to remove me as trustee for self-dealing. That claim delayed the company sale process and forced me to submit my devices for forensic review. The review found no evidence that I created or altered Dad's files. It also found an automated email Dad had scheduled to send his attorney at 7 a.m. on the Monday after his death. The email described the flash drive, the archive account, and the new will. Because Dad died Friday, the scheduled message was transmitted after his death exactly as written. Its server timestamp made Victor's fabrication claim impossible. The judge denied his petition and ordered him to pay the trust's related legal fees. More importantly, the failed attack authenticated the evidence Victor wanted excluded. Faced with that evidence, Victor settled. He surrendered 25% of his company shares, repaid $338,000 through the sale of the lake cabin, and agreed to a judgment for the remaining amount. He also pleaded guilty to felony theft and evidence tampering. The judge imposed home confinement, probation, restitution, and a ban on serving as a corporate officer. Noah cooperated, returned money he could trace, and lost his interest in BRI. Prosecutors did not charge him with the core theft because evidence showed Victor had concealed the source of several payments. Our relationship remains distant, but I believe he learned something terrible about his father at the same time I did. Mercer Precision survived. Elena became permanent CEO. We kept all 46 employees, replaced the conflicted vendors, and recovered enough money to upgrade 2 machines. 18 months later, a legitimate buyer offered $9.4 million for the whole company, with employment protections and a 5-year local lease. The trust and board accepted after an independent valuation. I did not become a manufacturing executive. Dad knew I did not want that life. After the sale, his trust paid taxes, employee bonuses, legal costs, and restitution expenses, then distributed the remainder according to the will. Dad had also created a $300,000 training fund for machinists, something Victor's rushed sale would have erased. Grandma asked for Victor's funeral day lie to be corrected within the family. We held a private gathering at her house. I explained that he had not been in the hospital and that he had entered the shop to remove records. I did not share every financial detail, but I refused to repeat the false emergency story. Some relatives said the truth should have died with Dad. Grandma answered them herself. "A lie does not honor my son because it uses his name," she said. "Daniel did not ask Olivia to hide this. Victor did." Victor and I have spoken twice since the settlement. During the second call, he apologized for using my login and missing the funeral. Then he said grief had made him panic. I told him the scheme began years before Dad died. He ended the call. I still think about the choice I made in the church hallway. I protected the funeral for 2 hours without protecting Victor's story forever. That distinction matters to me. There are moments when delaying a truth is compassion. There are other moments when hiding it becomes participation. Dad's sealed letter sits in a safe now. The final sentence says, "You do not owe the family silence when silence is the tool being used against it." On the anniversary of Dad's death, Elena placed a small brass plate beside his original lathe. It carries no mention of the fraud or the sale. It says only that Daniel Mercer believed skilled work should create dignity for the people doing it. The employees chose the words. Watching them gather around that machine, I understood that exposing Victor had not destroyed Dad's legacy. It had kept Victor from converting that legacy into cash while using family loyalty as cover. So, if your uncle asked you to hide the real reason he missed your father's funeral, and the truth revealed that he was stealing evidence from your father's business, would you expose him even if it permanently divided the family? Or would you keep part of the story private for the sake of the people left behind?